Hey, what's up guys? Jackson here with Toasty DIY, and today I'm going to be making kind of an opinionated video on why Datsuns are one of the coolest cars ever made and exactly what makes them cool in my opinion. So how about we go ahead and jump right into that. So I'm just going to go ahead and just start off by, explaining what exactly Datsun is, because I know there's a lot of people that don't know what Datsun is and have never heard of it. So Datsun is a car company that technically no longer exists, although they have in recent years brought it back in Japan for smaller economy cars. However, Datsun is basically Nissan. Nissan, which was, I'll have to fact check this, but I believe created before 1900. I want to say it was created in like the late 1800s. It might have been early 1900s. I'll have to check. But Datsun came about, I believe, in the 30s. I think it was 1931 when Nissan basically decided to make like a subsidiary company in a sense. And this is stuff that of course you can look up, and there's all kinds of information about it. It's not documented like the American cars are in the American automotive industry because, well, they're made in Japan, and around the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s on up, a lot of Americans did not like Japan and other countries like that. And that's honestly one of the reasons why I think these cars were just so undervalued for such a long time, up until recently. So a lot of you in the recent years have probably heard of Datsun, and that's just because they started skyrocketing in value. Well, back when I got into Datsuns, and it's not like it's been a long time. I'm not super old or anything. I'm about to be 23 years old, and I got into Datsuns when I was about 15, when I got this 280Z right here. It's the 1978 Datsun 280Z, and it was my first car. I got it when I was, like I said, 15, before I could even drive. And basically I got it just as like pretty much a rolling car, and it barely rolled. The tires were all flat, but it had the engine, it had the transmission, it had everything there. Long story short, I got it running and driving. Drove it all throughout high school and just worked on it all the time. Never put a lot of money into it. I always put just a little bit at a time, so it's always kind of been a junker car. It still kind of is. I mean, now it has a turbo swapped engine with a nice new 5-speed. It has a Mega Squirt harness on it, but it still has a lot of rust and is still kind of a piece of junk in a sense. And so I was actually able to pick this car up back when I was 15, so about 7 or 8 years ago now, for about $770. And that was like cash out the door. And back then that wasn't uncommon. I mean, you look at a lot of the Datsun forums if you want proof, and it was extremely common to get Datsuns for nothing. I mean, people would even trade for them. You do some work on someone's back porch or something, and they'll be like, I got a Datsun sitting out back, and the person doing the work would be like, I don't really know if I want that. That's the thing about these cars, is they weren't really worth much up until the last few years. The only way the Datsuns were really worth anything is if they were in this type of tip-top shape, or if they had some really cool stuff done to them, like an LS swap or like a Chevy small block 350. Now though, the LS swaps and the small block Chevy swaps really devalue the cars as opposed to having the original L series engine. And that's just because, just like any other car, people are starting to want, original cars. They want to have, numbers matching and everything. So, I mean, yeah, and the other thing is Japan is well known for making some of the best cars ever. Whether or not you're an American car person or, you like cars from Italy, France, whatever, Japan is just known for making, really good cars. I mean, look at, companies like Toyota and Nissan. They've always been known for making very dependable cars. They've made a lot of really weird ones over the years, but there's a reason, why these stuck around. So basically in the 1970s, I think it was 69 when the 240Z came out, the Roadsters were already out. They ended, I believe, in 1970, and then the Datsun 240Z came out. The 240Z was entered into all kinds of American races, and they just absolutely dominated the track. They were beating, Corvettes and Porsches, in a lot of these American races. And so that's kind of when they started really getting noticed in America. I mean, they were already in some other countries by then. Like, I think in Europe, they were there in like the 50s. But yeah, I mean, these cars though, were just phenomenal at first because they were so cheap. They, they were often called the poor man's Corvette or poor man's Porsche. And that's exactly what they were. If you couldn't afford one of those fancy cars, you could still get a sports car, and it was one of these. Or, one of these Roadsters over here. This one I actually paid $2,500 for. I think that's right, $2,500 for. And I'm not kidding when I say I got it in this shape. Obviously I bought the rim separately, I got the roll bar separately. Had to do some waxing and stuff, but I have not done any paint work to it. No chrome work. I haven't really replaced much on it. I did put a different engine in it. And I've probably replaced a couple of other things that you can't see, but all this exterior stuff that's as pretty as it is, and even the interior, I got the car this way for that price. It didn't run and drive when I got it, but it didn't take much to get it going. And that's the thing, is that wasn't a crazy price. I mean, now, yeah, people would go, oh my God, you got that for $2,500. Well, I only bought this 4 years ago. And back then, I mean, I was kind of worried that I made a bad deal. At times, honestly, I thought it was a good deal, but there were some people that were like, it's a Datsun, man, are you sure? But that's the thing, though. These things nowadays are starting to fetch money, just like the Zs are. The Zs are really are what's taken off. And then obviously there's the Datsun 510s. I've never actually owned a sedan Datsun, but I have had I've had a few trucks, actually. I've had a 77 620 pickup that had a really nice engine swap in it. I had a 521 pickup that was a 72. And then I had another one that I can't even remember what it is anymore. I've had about 4 Roadsters. I actually have another one sitting in our office right now. I have all kinds of parts too. These aren't even all of them. I have a garage full at my parents' house I still need to clean out, but there's parts like scattered everywhere. But yeah, here's a whole Roadster engine. Practically new Roadster head, Roadster diff. I mean, I have some really clean stuff in here that I'm kind of just saving up on. Yeah, I have a lot of cool stuff. I got like a Datsun sign up there. Another thing about Datsun that makes them kind of cool, kind of not cool at the same time, is getting parts for them is extremely hard. So really, for a long time, you could only really get original parts. That's all that was sold, was original parts off of eBay and some other Datsun specific sites. And not to say there was an aftermarket back in like the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, but ever since my knowledge, like the early 2000s on up, the aftermarket was little to none for the Datsuns. You pretty much had to go with OEM parts, or, that were new on shelf or new old stock, as they call it, or you had to go with just used parts that you pulled off of another car. Now that a lot of companies are, because these cars are getting so expensive, of course that's what it takes, they're starting to remanufacture like nice stamped floor pans. They're remanufacturing like dog rails, frame rails. You can, they'll rebuild engines and even remanufacture them to an extent. So they're starting to actually get some parts going for them. Wasn't a lot of Datsun memorabilia either. Well, not memorabilia. There wasn't a lot of Datsun knickknacks flying around. Like my girlfriend got that for me. I was really excited about that neon poster. But yeah, I mean, a few years ago, I remember you could Google Datsun stuff and you'd see the same 10 things floating around, like some keychains and a few other things. But then, you Google like Chevy, Ford, any of those big companies, and you can just you could rebuild those cars from the ground up with the amount of aftermarket parts you can get. With these cars still, as the time of recording this video, you still really can't build one from the ground up. You really can't even get close to it, to my knowledge. I mean, they make a couple of the body panels in very limited quantities, and there's no major companies that produce them. Air dams are pretty easy to get. I think the glass isn't too terrible to get made. I mean, things like cheap Chinese mirrors and, whale tail, ducktail, whatever. Some of that stuff's not too hard to get, but other than that, though, I mean, these cars really don't have a lot that's made for them. As far as like metal parts, especially like, the hood and the fenders and all that stuff, I don't really know of any company that consistently remanufactures those. So that's another thing that kind of makes these cool, rare, unique, is that they're for a long time, there was no aftermarket for them. And so, finding aftermarket parts is really hard, and it made it to where there was a little bit less of these cars every single day, because they got crushed, they got, turned in for smog points back when that was a thing. So that's the thing, is these cars are very limited now, because they sold a lot of them back in the day, but so many people just treated them like junk cars, which, at the time they might have been. But, I always hear stories every time I drive one of these cars somewhere, or any of the Datsuns I have. Every time someone asks, what is it? And if they do know what it is, or they didn't, it doesn't matter. They'll always say, oh, my cousin had one of those. My mom had one. My sister had one. Someone in someone's family always had a Datsun. You know, they were just an extremely popular car. I mean, it's like, you know, now saying, oh yeah, my brother had a Nissan Altima, my dad had a, you know, a Toyota Corolla, a Toyota Camry. Like they were extremely common cars back then to have because they were so cheap. And they had station wagons, they had trucks, sedans, roadsters. They even had Datsun, you know, what would you call them? Not semi trucks, but box trucks and stuff like that. They might have had semis, I don't really know. Forklifts are really common too, Datsun forklifts. They actually share a lot of parts, which I think that's one of the last things on my list. Is another thing that makes Datsuns really cool is the fact that almost all the parts are interchangeable or, you know, comparable in a way. So the only part where it really differs is some of the really old stuff and some of the newer stuff. I would say like in the 70s, early 80s, almost every single Datsun counterpart was an L series. So, you know, the transmissions, the engines, almost everything bolted together on these cars, and anything that had an L in front of it could pretty much be used with any of the other engines. Obviously, you know, take that loosely because I know that you couldn't use every single thing, but I'm saying that the L series engines were just very, very similar, whether it was a 4-cylinder or a 6-cylinder. They were all inline engines, any of the L series were. Also the R series were. So the R series is what this is right here. This is a Roadster engine. The only thing that really makes this one different, and makes it a lot different, is that it's a pushrod engine, so it's not an overhead cam like all the L series are. But, you know, with that being said, though, the L series, like I said, such a long-running engine line. They were even making them after the Z stopped, to my knowledge, and they were just being put into everything. Like it's kind of like the Ford like Pinto or the Ford Ranger, the 2.3 liter that's been made forever, and you find them in like wood chippers and sometimes forklifts and all kinds of crazy things. That's kind of how the L series were, like especially the little 4-cylinders in these Datsuns. They were put like into everything that came out of Japan. So yeah, it wasn't uncommon to see an L series lying around somewhere, and I've seen my fair share going to junkyards and stuff where I just randomly find them. So yeah, I mean, that's one of my favorite things as well about these cars, is that I can go to a junkyard, and if I find like even a newer car, like a Nissan Maxima or a Pathfinder, I mean, there's all kinds of, you know, even like brand new Nissans, not brand new, but close to brand new, like early 2000s. And a lot of the parts will fit on these cars. So, you know, I mean, I think that pretty much wraps up everything. Long story short, I'm a pretty diehard Datsun fan. I actually have a Datsun tattoo. I have, you know, some random Datsun stuff here and there. My office is full of Datsun car ads and posters and whatnot that are, you know, time period correct and everything. So, yeah, I mean, I really do love Datsuns, and you know, for a long time, I really thought I wanted to go into some kind of Datsun business, which I'm really glad to see a lot of these guys that are making it doing that. A lot of these guys have been around for a while, you know, like Godzilla Raceworks, Z-Car Depot, there's that guy, Z-Car guy. A lot of these guys have been diehard Datsun fans for a long time. It's just really, it wasn't that profitable. But recently, with the cars being worth as much as they are, people finally are willing to put the money in them. They're finally willing to pay the money for these cars. So because of that, a lot of the guys that specialize in Datsun stuff, you know, can finally get like up to $70,000 for storing one of these cars, honestly, if it, you know, if it needs the work, and people will pay it. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely an exciting world for me. You know, obviously I kind of chose computers as my path because, well, it's a lot less stressful, it's a lot less work, less tedious. You're not really putting your life in someone's, or sorry, someone's not putting their life in your hands. Because that's another thing about working on cars is, you know, it's kind of a very big thing to be working on. If you do anything wrong, you could end up hurting someone or killing someone, you know? So yeah, you know, I still love tinkering with these cars in my free time, but obviously, you know, the computer life chose me. So overall, though, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you guys want to see any other Datsun videos, by the way, there's plenty on this channel, Toasty DIY. We have videos of, I really need to actually get a video of driving the Datsun Roadster. I don't think I have one. I have like a walk around, but I don't think I have any video of me driving it. Really can't remember. 280Z, on the other hand, though, I actually did like almost a full build guide with doing the L28 ET engine swap. And on top of that, I've done like 3 videos since then of driving it, tuning it, and stuff like that. Still isn't perfect, but it's a lot of fun to drive. Like, my favorite car puts a smile on my face every time. Everybody else that sees it puts a smile on their face, so I'm happy about that. So we hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you guys in the next one.